Hello everyone and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. It's Ryan and we have a different video today. As you can see, we've got a tier maker pulled up here. We're going to be doing, as recommended by a bunch of commenters, like a dream team for the certain eras, as well as like some of my favorite players on certain teams and stuff. But before we get into that, on this video, we had another person recommend that like after I make my teams, maybe you guys comment down below your 4v4 era teams and your 5v5 era teams, and then I'd give it a rating, like saying if I think it'd be a good team, if I think it'd be a bad team, maybe if I like the players in the team like personally or not. So before you do anything, after you watch this video, throw in like your 4v4 era team, maybe your 5v5 era team, and then I can do like a little rating on each commenter's post about their teams, so make sure to do that. And then as well, if you're new, be sure to drop a subscribe on the channel. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and comment down below any other thoughts you have on my rosters, as well as, like I said, comment your rosters that you would make down below. But before we get into just diving right into making the rosters, I'm going to explain to you a little bit of the logic behind it, because obviously there's got to be some kind of like criteria we're going by. It's mostly going to be based off like eye test and watching the players, and then the eras that we're talking about. So that 4v4 era you see, that's going to be from BO2 up to World War II. The reason we're not doing anything before BO2 is because I know of players that were really good in that era, and I know some things, but CoD wasn't streamed as much and wasn't shown as much, so I don't have as vast of a knowledge on things that happened before BO2, so I don't want to like throw in players that were maybe legendary in that era. So I'm just going to go off what I personally know better. Some of you might know like the Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, CoD 4 era way better than I do, but I don't feel comfortable like saying like, oh, let's throw Pacman in there because he was so good at CoD 4. I don't know that era as well, so we're doing BO2 up to the end of 4v4, which was at World War II. And then 4v4 honorable mentions, there's a lot of all-time great players that are in there, and I can't throw them all in one roster, so I'm going to leave some of the GOATs, maybe the GOAT, out of it, just to do something different. So that's going to be the honorable mentions for that. Then 5v5 is going to be a lot smaller sample size, so you're going to see a lot of probably newer players in that one. It's based only on Black Ops 4 and Modern Warfare, because those are the only two games we have played 5v5. And then the honorable mentions are going to be players as well that maybe just missed the cut for the 5v5 era, because obviously there can only be 5 players from that era that are in it, so we're going to give some honorable mentions for that too. Only the 5v5 team is not based on anything. It's only based on their play in BO4 and Modern Warfare. So like all-time legends, like I can't even think of a player really, but if there's a player that was like amazing in 4v4, like Hecz is a good example. He hasn't been very good in Black Ops 4 or Modern Warfare, so like he's an all-time great player that deserves to be in the conversation for these teams, but not in 5v5 because he's been a below average player in 5v5. And then 4v4 retired players, it's only going to be retired players. It's going to kind of be like my favorite players. The team might be kind of trash, but it's going to be like more of my faves. And then I'm going to list like a couple, just maybe 2 or 3 players, and like my honorable mention favorite players, which, I mean, there's so many more that I love, but I'm only going to list a couple to not extend the video too long. And then lastly, I'm going to just say, like, regardless of roles, if I had to make a team of 5 players, even if the roles don't make any sense, of players that I just love, who would I be? And then the other thing I'm going to do is there's going to be no repeats. So if somebody is an honorable mention in 4v4, they can't be listed as a 5v5 team era or something like that. So like guys like Crimsix, I mean, if he's on the 4v4 era team, he can't be on the 5v5 era team, even though he's been a decent player. Or like if he is an honorable mention in 4v4, he can't be an honorable mention in 5v5. They can only be listed in one category. Otherwise, like you could list people like Scump or Karma or Crim in like every category, and that would just be boring. So we're only doing one per category. They can only make it in one spot. All right, so we're going to start with the 4v4 era team. And like I said, this is from BO2 to World War II. And honestly, when I was thinking about this, I was like, you could make the Complexity Dynasty team and just say that's your roster because they were so good. But Hecz struggled a little bit. I mean, he finished pretty high at champs, like 3rd or something in Advanced Warfare, finished like top 6 in BO3, struggled in IW, won an event in Advanced Warfare, and that's, I believe, the only time he won an event in jetpacks, so you can't really like throw Hecz on a roster in my opinion. And then like guys like TP, once again, amazing through like the boots early games, but like once Advanced Warfare rolled around, he wasn't all that great. BO3, he didn't have a lot of success, and he retired, and he didn't play in IW, so it's hard to throw a guy like TP on there. Obviously, Karma could make the team in the 4v4 era, and so could Crim, and so could Clay. And then I looked, and I'm like, the team that was more dominant all throughout jetpacks, and they were all also good in the boots era, was the Optic Dynasty. But to me, it'd be boring to just be like, hey, the 4 players I'm making for my 4v4 era team are the Optic Dynasty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically take the Optic Dynasty and put a twist on it. This is going to be blasphemous to a lot of you, and it's kind of blasphemous to me, but just for the fun of the video, I'm doing this, so no hating on it. And this page is a little big, so I got to kind of bring them up. We're going to like throw the submachine gun players in there first, kind of like go in order from like subs over to our AR player, and there's so many players pictures down here. I got to find the players I am looking for. Here's the first guy I'm looking for in the 4v4 era. I got to bring him up, not retired. Should be a pretty obvious one to you. I mean, BO2, he was one of the best subs in the game. Ghost, he's one of the best subs in the game. Advanced Warfare, you can make an argument he was the best sub in the game. BO3, same thing, up there with Apathy and John is the best sub in the game. IW, he wasn't as great throughout the year, but he won events, and then he won champs in it. And then World War II, he was pretty bad at the end of the year, but at the beginning of the year, he was around to 1 the whole year, so he wasn't horrible. But the dude had one bad game in 4v4, which was World War II, and even that year, besides the last 2 events, he wasn't that bad. And he was, you can make an argument for like 5 straight titles, he was the best sub in the game, or a top 3, so he's got to be on the team in the 4v4 era. Scump has to be starting out the team as our sub. And then kind of our other sub flex, I don't know how you can't put him in there. I got to find his picture on here too. It's tough to find all of them. There he is, Mr. 3 Rings. We got to bring him up. So like I said, I'm basically going to be doing the Optic Dynasty because I think they're easily the most dominant team of 4v4, but I'm going to do a twist on him. He's kind of like going to be like our second sub, kind of flex player, kind of our in the 4v4 era, we had more of like an OBJ-oriented player in the beginning of it, so he's going to be kind of more of our OBJ player. And the reason I think he's so good in that role is because he can also slay out of it, and a lot of times in the early eras, the OBJ player couldn't slay at all. Guys like Nadeshot played the OBJ but was around like a 0.8, 0.9 all the time, or guys like Doug too. And then for our flex, this is where we're going to change up the Optic Dynasty. I'm going to take a player, and we're also not accounting chemistry at all, or I wouldn't put him up here. We're going to throw Gunless up here. This is weird because they all ended up being like Huntsmen players too. We're going to throw Gunless in there. And the reason I throw him in there is because obviously he started playing in BO3 and didn't really do much. He was an AM in BO3. But the reason I'm throwing him in there is because I don't think there's many players that you can say were the best player in the game in 2 different games pretty undoubtedly. And Gunless has that title. I mean, I think he was probably for a long time like the best player in IW and also like the best player in World War II for a long time. So just to make the Optic Dynasty a little more interesting, I'm throwing him up there with another member of the Optic Dynasty, Formal. And the weird thing is I'm not even like a huge Optic Dynasty fan. I liked them and they were good for the storylines. But it's not like I'm like some Optic fanboy, but they were just so dominant, it's hard not to almost put their whole team here. You could have put Crim in here instead of Gunless, and you'd be completely okay. And I do think it's kind of blasphemous to not have Crim in this 4v4 era team because, I mean, dude has the most championships of all time in 4v4, tied for the 2nd most rings in 4v4. So I think it's a little dumb not to have him in here, but just for the sake of the video and just to change things up, I put Gunless in here instead of him. I think this team would be absolutely disgusting. Formal came in Ghosts and was arguably the best player for a little bit in Ghosts, and then you can make an argument he was one of the best in AW, in BO3, in IW he was the best at champs and maybe one of the best in the entire game overall. And then World War II, he started the year slow, but so did the whole Optic team, and then he was pretty darn good by champs time. He's a dominant AR, maybe the best AR of the era. And then you've got Karma to do the dirty work, Scump to be a SMG slayer, and then Gunless is the interesting thing. At his peak in the end, he was almost at that like Crim level that Crim was at in like Ghosts and BO2 when Crim was unreal. But I think this team would basically almost be the same as the Optic Dynasty because Gunless's top tier talent almost matches Crim's. So I think they'd almost be like the Optic Dynasty, and I think they'd dominate. And like I said, these guys can't show up. I mean, you can make an argument that they could show up in every category besides obviously retired, but they can't show up. Oh, Karma could show up in retired, I guess. But they can't show up again now that they've been shown up once. And then this is like the biggest list we have, the 4v4 honorable mentions. We've got to throw a lot of players in here. First one that obviously has to be thrown in here, if I can find his darn pictures, it's so hard to find the people, is Crim. Obviously, like I said, he should be on the team, but just for the sake of the video, I want to switch it up. Crim's in the honorable mentions. I'll put all the players that I have. Obviously, there's a ton of players that deserve to be in there, but for the sake of the video not going for 2 hours, I can only put a couple up there. I'm also going to put up TP. He's like a 15 plus 19 time champ or something in 4v4, like way up there in champs. He's got so many of them. And then also Hecz has got to be thrown up there. I'm going to throw somebody that some of you might not even know if you started watching CoD this year. John's going to go up there. I'm going to move him up. And then I think I'm going to throw 2 more people in there. I'm going to throw Yeah, we'll throw Clay and Apathy, I think, up there if I can find them. Here's Clay. Move him up there for now. And then where the heck is Apathy? God, I can't find any of these players in this darn list. Am I blind? I can't find Apathy. I think I might be blind. I might be blind. I don't even know where the heck Apathy is. Well, just know that Apathy should be... Oh, there he is. He should be up there. We're going to put those two up in the 4v4 honorable mentions. So, yeah, these 6 players, don't want to spend too much time on them, but obviously Hecz, TP, Crim, Clay, all part of like that Cole dynasty. They obviously all deserve to be honorable mentions, could easily be on the team. And then John and Apathy. John is a COD Champs MVP in the 4v4 era in Black Ops 3. Apathy won 2 rings in the era, and they were both super aggressive subs that at the time, you can make the argument that they were top 3 subs, and even you can make the argument that they were like the 2 best subs in BO3 by the end of the year. So those guys are all honorable mentions. Any of them can make the team. I explained kind of like why TP and Hecz maybe don't make it, but I would have no problem if you threw any of those guys, as well as so many others, but we can't list 20 people here because that would just be way too long of a video. Then into my 5v5 era team, like I said, this is going to have a lot of newer faces that maybe don't have a ton of championships because there's only been 2 games in the 5v5 era. We don't look into any of their 4v4 time in this. This is only their BO4 play and their Modern Warfare play, and there are so many players that could get in like just based off Modern Warfare, but I'm putting more weight into BO4 almost in a way because of the fact that it was a full year of LAN and everything. But the player we're going to start out with is Abezy. I think in BO4, you can make an argument that he was the best sub in the game along with his teammate Simp. He's super good, and I think he's so valuable because he can drop like a 1.2 as an entry player, which is so rare. And then I'm going to throw his Tiny Terror duo in there with him. I think I'm just going to go ahead and throw Simp in there with him. I think that Simp 100% deserves to be on this 5v5 era team. Probably the best player in BO4. He was the playoffs MVP, the champs MVP, constant Mr. 1.3, and I think any team with Simp and Abezy on it, especially in this new era of COD, has a chance to win a tournament at any point. Then the other player I'm going to throw in, some of you might disagree with it, but based off his talent, I'm also throwing him in there mostly. I'm going to throw Kenny in there as like my 3rd SMG kind of flex type of player, and some of you might disagree with it because he hasn't been like takeover mode. His best game was World War II, but he sucked at the beginning of the year in BO4, let's be honest, but by the end of the year I think he was a top 10 player with the Maddox in his hand. And then this year he's also been on a team that's just subpar, but he's had moments of flash of greatness, and I just think he's one of the most talented players there is out there. I think he works really well with a team. I think he can do it all, which is also why I'm throwing him in here. I think you've got Simp and Abezy who can be your dominant subs, and Kenny seems to sometimes like to run a sub and an AR depending on the game, and with these 2 subs on his team, he could run whatever he wants and still fit into the team, so he's kind of like your SMG flex type player, and I just think his talent is unreal, and I think with these 3 players on your team and that much talent, you can literally beat anybody at any time. So then like my second AR, flex AR type of player is going to be Arcitys, and there's a lot of guys I could have gone with here. One of the guys you'll see he's going to make somewhere on the list, he should be an honorable mention otherwise, or could be on the team, is Slasher. Only reason I'm not throwing him on the list is because I think he was outperformed as a main AR a little bit by another guy I'm going to throw on the list, but Slasher could easily be on this team. But the reason I go with Arcitys over Slasher in that second AR flex type of role is because I think that Slasher certainly was good with the Maddox last year and obviously is good with the main AR, but I think Arcitys has more ability to flex to a sub than Slasher does and also can dominate with an AR. As we've seen this year, Arcitys was unreal as the main AR on E United in BO4, and then this year he was pretty darn good as a sub, but since he switched to the second M4 on the Huntsmen, he's been unreal. So I think he just has more flexibility to be able to run a sub if all of a sudden we were to hit a 4-sub meta game again. I think Arcitys has more flexibility to run a sub, which is why I put him ahead of a guy like Slasher. And then for our final spot on this roster, we're going to go with our main AR. I think you guys should all know where I'm going with this one. If I can find him down here on the list, here he is. Mr. Sam LaRue, one of my favorite players. It's Octane. He's got to be the main AR on the team. He was the best main AR in my mind, no doubt, in BO4. I don't think anybody can really argue that. And then he has the best KD for a main AR, and you can make an argument he's the best one in Modern Warfare. So pretty simply, he makes the team. And I think this team is going to be a problem. I think Abezy and Simp are easy to play with. They're pretty vibey. I think Kenny's pretty vibey, easy to play with. I think everybody says Arcitys is like Mr. Vibes, easy to play with, and I think Octane is. But Arcitys is a good IGL. Kenny's got good knowledge. Octane, from what I know, has good knowledge. And I think Simp and Abezy, with the way they win, they might not be the smartest about the game, but they definitely are teachable and seem pretty easygoing and can learn easily, as they were with Clay and Arcitys. So I think this team absolutely dominates the 5v5 era. Then going into some honorable mentions, we're only going to do a few because obviously this era has been shorter. I think I'm going to just throw Dashy in there simply based on his BO4 performance. He obviously wasn't amazing this year, but his BO4 performance is so unreal, he's got to be an honorable mention. And then I'm also going to throw Cellium in there because in BO4, especially by the end of the year, he was amazing. And then this year, you can argue he's the MVP. So to me, he's got to go in the honorable mention. And you could actually switch him out with Kenny if you wanted to, because he's probably been even or maybe a little worse than Kenny in BO4, but definitely better than him in Modern Warfare. So you could swap him out, but I just didn't want to go 3 with Atlanta Faze because that's kind of boring. So I didn't do that. And then one of like my all-time favorite players, Huke's going to go in the honorable mention. He was disgusting at the beginning of BO4, and he's like almost the league leader in kills this year. He's disgusting. You could easily throw him on your team, but I wanted to keep the Simp and Abezy duo together. And then 2 more for this. We're going to go with, I think, Priesta and Temp as our other honorable mentions for the 5v5 era. If I can find them, here's Priesta. Throw him in the 5v5 honorable mentions, and then Temp in the 5v5 honorable mentions. And the reason I go with those 2 is because Priesta in BO4, he changed 100 Thieves. He made them into a championship type of team when he switched in for Fero. He hasn't been as good this year, but as of late, the last tournament, he looked amazing. And then Temp, another one of the best players on Splice in BO4, and then he's been pretty darn good this year, especially once he switched to that second AR, or the third AR, fourth AR, whatever the heck it was in that event that New York won. He's been really good. And, I mean, my God, look at that team I just made in the 5v5 honorable mentions. Put Dashy on the main AR. Put probably Huke on the main sub with Priesta backing him up as a sub. And then like your sub flex as Temp. And then your AR flex as Cellium. That team, I mean, I'd like to see a matchup between my honorable mentions versus my 5v5 era team. I mean, my God, the honorable mentions team might even freaking win. That'd be a series. But those are my honorable mentions for the 5v5. Like I said, there's so many more players like Skies or Scraps or Prestinni or any of these players that could easily beat Dylan even from BO4 that could be honorable mentions attach, but we just can't list all of them because, I mean, you'd be going on forever. That's why I think you guys commenting down below your rosters could be interesting because there's probably 5 players on the list below like Skies and Scraps and Attach and Dylan that you can make a roster with that might even be able to take out my 5v5 era team. Then this is just more of a for fun list. The 4v4 retired favorite players. I saw a couple of them on here and I had to make it. Kind of the guy that helped get me into CoD and probably got a lot of you into CoD. I got to throw Nadeshot in there. I really have a lot of love for Nadeshot, and I really like what he's done with 100 Thieves. Yeah, so I got to throw him up there. Oh, I just realized that I missed an honorable mention for 4v4. I just saw him down here. I got to throw him up there. 4v4 honorable mention. JCap. He's got to go in there. He's an all-time great. So our main like OBJ sub on my 4v4 retired team is going to work as Nadeshot. And then some dude that I think was disgusting. His career was just cut short maybe by a little bit of ego issues and stuff. Miracles, he's going to be like our Slayer sub for the retired squad. And then like our AR flex, I love Proofy. He's going to get thrown in there. And then the GOAT, Big T. I think everybody loves Big T as the main AR. And low key, I mean, now this team will get smoked because obviously Proofy's retired, Nadeshot's retired, Miracle's retired. They're all retired, and they haven't played in a while. But in the actual like early on 4v4 era, like Big T was at one point the winningest player. He was a good main AR. Proofy was a good AR Slayer type player, as he could be like a good flex. Miracles was one of like the best submachine gun Slayers in BO2. And then Nadeshot was one of the better OBJ players. People like to say Nadeshot was trash. He wasn't amazing, but he was a solid player. This team in like early BO2, this team might make some noise. They wouldn't be like insane, but they could maybe be like top 8 finishes and stuff. That team could be good in the early era. And then just 3 players I want to throw in the honorable mention favorite players. Got to throw my boy Slasher up there. Like I said, the only reason he's not in the honorable mention for 4v4 and 5v5 is just because I want to throw him in as my favorite player and say that he could be on the 5v5 team, on the 4v4 team, or an honorable mention on both. But I just didn't throw him on there because, why not? To me, Slasher is just so good that I didn't want to like pin him in one era. I think he's so damn good that he could have been on either team. So I got to just throw him in my favorite players, give him some love. Slasher is like maybe my favorite player. Gotta obviously throw Methods on there. I don't think he's good enough to make any team, but he is probably my favorite player in the CDL. There's one other player I saw on this list that I absolutely love. He's not even in the league, but Naga. Got to throw him on my honorable mention favorite players. And then Killa. 4 players I just love. There's so many other players down here that I really, really like. Like I love Enable. We'll just throw him on the list. Why not? I love guys like Fero. I love Replays. I mean, so many players. I really like Doug. Why not? But I'm just going to keep those players on there for now. Even that team could low-key be a problem. Not now, really, but throw Slasher on the AR Flex, Methods on the main, Naga and Killa and Enable on subs. I mean, they kind of be trash. They wouldn't have Slain power, but any team with Slasher can make some noise. And then I just wanted to like mention, like if I had to pick a 5v5 team, regardless of roles of like my favorite players probably ever, I'd probably have Methods, Huke, Scump, Octane, and Kenny. And low-key, that team might be nasty. Throw Octane on the main, Methods on like a second AR flex, Kenny on the flex, and then Huke and Scump on the subs. That team would actually probably be pretty good. And then throw Doug as a 6-man. Why not? Hype man Doug. Get us some content out. But there you go. 4v4 era team. Obviously, there's so many iterations that you could go with these teams. I went with Scump, Karma, Gunless, Formal. Honorable mentions for that, I went Crim, TP, Hecz, John, Apathy, Clay, JCap. On the 5v5 era team, I went with the Tiny Terrors, Kenny, Arcitys, Octane, and then honorable mentions for that era, I went with a team that could maybe beat my 5v5 team. Dashy, Celium, Huke, Priesta, Temp. My favorite like 4v4 kind of retired players, Karma, obviously couldn't be in this since he was already in another one, otherwise he would have been. Went with Nade Shot, Miracles, Proofy, and Big T. And then honorable mention, just favorite players overall, that Slasher, like I said, could have easily been, probably should have been on a 4v4 or 5v5 team, but just decided to throw him in. Honorable mention, favorite players out of respect and showing that he could be in anything. Methods, my favorite player, he's got to be in there. Naga, my other favorite player. And then Killa, in the favorite players, because I mean Killa's just a legend. And then Enable, I just think he's so funny. Got to throw him in the honorable mentions as well. And then, yeah, my 5v5 team I mentioned of just favorite players regardless of roles would be Methods, Huke, Scump, Octane, Kenny. But comment down below your guys' team. Who would you have? You don't really have to do like honorable mentions and stuff like that if you don't want to not keep your list too long. But comment down below, what would be your 4v4 era team? To me, certainly, you could throw Crim in there. You probably should throw Crim in there. I just wanted to make it a little different. You can throw Clay in there. All those honorable mention guys I mentioned, plus guys like Attach and Slasher, and you could throw those guys in there. Like I said, Slasher would be an honorable mention if he wasn't in my favorite players, so you could put him in any of those. But comment down below your 4v4 era team, your 5v5 era team, and then maybe I'll give them like a rating, like A+, A minus, B+, B minus, like that. Hopefully none of you guys are giving me C or D or F teams. I mean, my God. And then maybe say like what your team of your favorite players would be. I'll give them a rating down below. But thank you guys so much for watching this little bit different video. Obviously, this is much different than the stuff we normally do, not a podcast. I'm probably going to look to get out some other videos, maybe like my favorite AR guns or favorite submachine gun guns or favorite competitive guns, maybe some other stuff in the next couple weeks. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed. Comment that stuff down below, like I said, and I'll give you probably like a letter grade rating on your team based on kind of my thoughts on it. There's probably going to be a lot of A's because the teams are just going to be disgusting when you can pick from all the players. And then be sure to, yeah, like I said, drop a sub if you're new, comment that down below. Look out for the podcast. It'll probably be coming about like a week from today because that next weekend is when the playoffs start up. So be sure to look out for that video. Maybe look out for a couple more videos along this week, showcasing maybe some videos like this. Let me know if you have any ideas for other videos. But thank you guys so much for watching this little bit different video on the channel. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Hope you're looking forward to champs. I look forward to making the podcast on it. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.